Our discussion today is going to be on the data analysis section of your SMAC. So for this section, as we reviewed in Canvas, you are going to first of all set up your data. You need to look at your survey, and this first column, you're going to set up all the questions that relates to the variables and put in the labels in the first column going across. If you watch this data, all of the data points across are the responses on the survey that you will be receiving back from your participants. So the first question, let's say it was satisfaction. On satisfaction, the person responded to a 4. That's where you would, that's the 4, and then you would go across in response to all of the responses for the first respondent. So going across is the first respondent, the second respondent, the third respondent, the fourth respondent, etc. So once you've put all your data in, what you will see is the clear labels for all of the variables that you have developed on your survey. So you need to discuss, and in that analysis, there are 3 sections that you will be discussing. The first one is data setup. All the discussion is in Canvas. The second one is statistical test, where you will discuss the test and document what the tests are measuring. And the last one is findings. So we're going to be doing the finding sections right now. In the finding sections, you're going to have to be doing descriptive statistics, hypothesis testing. You choose between regression or correlation analysis. So let's discuss how you're going to apply the test. You go to data. Once you put all the data in, you go to data, data analysis, and you're going to choose the first one, which is descriptive statistics. So you're going to choose descriptive statistics and say OK. Now, for the descriptive statistics, you cannot do it as a set. You need to do it individually. Y1, X1, X3, X4, X5 individually. You cannot do it as a set. You must do it individually. So we're going to start with the first variable, which is going to be your variable, your Y variable. So if you go, the first thing you do is you click into your input box and you take all the values for the first variable, which is satisfaction. So we get all of the values. Then you check mark labels in first row and you label the sheet. So you're going to label it as descriptive DS, descriptive statistics, and your first variable, which was Y, satisfaction, so that all the sheets are labeled. Then you say, you check mark summary statistics, confidence level, and then you say OK. So this is your output. And I always tell students you want to highlight the mean, medium, and mode for each of the outputs in your data output. So you're going to highlight that in yellow. You're going to highlight the mean in yellow, the standard deviation in yellow, and the mean in yellow. Because from that, you're going to have to do a descriptive statistics table, which will look like this. Okay? And the table should have the mean, median, mode, standard deviation, and underneath it, you have to discuss what these values mean. So now we're going to go on to your next data analysis. So you're going to be doing the descriptive statistics for each of the variables. So satisfaction, job security, safety, training. You do not want to do it as one set. You want to do them individually. So the next test we're going to be doing is regression. We're going to go to data, data analysis, and we're going to go to regression. Once again, you're going to be looking at how the x variables are correlated to the y. So you're going to be doing it individually. You are not doing it as a set. So you're going to go y1, x1, y1, x3, y1, x4, y1, x5. So I'm going to show you an example. You click in the first box and you put in all of the satisfaction first. Then you're going to do your first x variable. So you're going to click on the x variable. You check mark labels in first row, confidence level, and you label the worksheet regression X1 job security. So you know when you come back at the bottom of the sheet that is labeled. Check again, you have labels, confidence level, and then you say okay. That is your data output. You want to look at the multiple R, adjusted R squared. And you want to look at your p-value, the bottom, not the top. You're not looking at the intercept. You're looking at the value for the bottom. Now, pay attention to this. When the p-value from your output, is greater than 0.05, that variable is not significant. When the p-value is less than or equal to 0.05, then the variable is significant. So in this case, the output is showing a variable result of 0.48. So that variable is not significant. So you will say here, job security does not impact employee satisfaction. Likewise, you will need to do a table, a regression table, which looks like this. This is a regression table. Now, anytime you see a value with an E, like this one, that variable is very significant. Okay? So for every single statistical test, you are going to have to do a table. And you're going to label the table, table 2, table 1, and give it a name. The next test we're going to be talking about is your correlation analysis. So you go to data analysis, and you scroll down to correlation. And you say, okay. The difference with correlation is you want to take everything in the basket, the whole thing. Then you check mark labels in first row, and then you call it correlation results. And this is the correlation. Okay? This is the correlation. So you want to look at the first column first for the correlation. And then after you have determined whether or not each of the variables, what kind of relationship is it? Is it a moderate relationship? Is it a weak relationship? Or is it a strong relationship? Or is it no relationship? And we will discuss this further in class. So the next test that we're going to do, the last one, is hypothesis testing. Okay? So for the hypothesis test, you're only going to focus on your y variable and the variable that you place in the statement of the hypothesis. So if I had an hypothesis test that stated, for instance, when My whole, let's say my whole is when job security increases, employee satisfaction increases. And my ha is when job security increases, there is no impact on employee satisfaction. I want to measure this statement. How do I measure that? I'm only going to focus on my Y variable and the variable in the statement, which is job security. So I'm going to go to data analysis. And I'm going to look for the t-test. I'm going to look for the t-test assuming unequal variances. This one. T-test assuming two sample, assuming unequal variances. Say okay. And then in my first variable range, I will put my Y variable. And the second range, only the variable that addresses the statement. Check mark labels in first row and then label it hypothesis test. And test 1 or 2 depending on how many statements you have. Say okay. That is my output, which I'm going to make a little bigger. This is what you want to look at. You want to look at PT two-tail. And once again, if the p-value, you put it underneath there. You have to write your statements underneath. Just like we did here, you want to write it underneath so that everybody can see what your statements are and whether or not you'll accept or reject it. And then when the p-value is greater than 0.05, you accept ho and reject ha. When the p-value is less than 0.05, you accept ha and reject ho. All right, so this is the first of many lessons of how to apply the statistical test, which we'll be reviewing further in class and in your team assignments for the review of data analysis. Okay, once again, you must develop specific tables for each result, including the hypothesis test. You must have tables for all of them. You must write the hypothesis statement underneath, and you must discuss it. Okay? So we will be reviewing all of this again in class on Tuesday.